Good morning, everyone. Good morning to Ms. McClure's second grade class. My name is Michelle McCracken, and for those of you that don't remember me, I used to be your SRO for Homewood Elementary. So some of you guys that remember me from the first grade that have now transitioned into the second grade and you're in Miss McClure's class, I want you to know that I miss you and I love you and I think about you guys every day. And the reason why I left Homewood was because I got accepted into nursing school. So I decided that I wanted to get out of policing and go into the medical field, which is where I've always felt that my calling was. Even before I got into policing, I was a medic. So I was always into wanting to help people. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. So that's the reason why I'm no longer with you guys at Homewood, but you have a wonderful replacement, Officer Riley, that's there. And so he's going to make sure that he protects you and keeps everybody safe. And I know that he is going to love you just as much as I do. So one of the reasons why I am talking to you guys today is because I have wrote a second children's book and Miss McClure wanted me to read a little bit of it to you guys. And before I get started, I want you guys to know that I am so super proud of you. You guys have been working really, really hard. And I know that internet learning and homeschooling is quite difficult, but you guys have been awesome, and I just want you to know that I am truly super proud of you. And I want you to keep up the good work. Remember, no matter what you do, what you touch, who you're with, make sure you always wash your hands. And when we wash our hands, we're going to wash them with soap and water, and we're going to scrub and rub for at least 20 seconds. So remember to sing the happy birthday song once you start scrubbing. And then rinse your hands, okay? So it's the most important thing that I want you to remember is that you always, always, always need to wash your hands after everything that you do. And don't touch your eyes, your nose, or your mouth, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you guys to Jimmy's Big Adventure, The Pirate and the Dinosaur. So let me get this open, and I'm going to read the first two chapters of the book for you guys. And for any new students that are in Miss McClure's class, when I was out at Homewood, my first book that I wrote was When Molly Meets the Fairy Godmother, and this was Molly. She was the inspiration for it. But Miss Goodson has a couple of copies in her library. So when you guys go back to school, if you're interested in reading this book, just go and see Miss Goodson and ask her if you can check out the book. Okay? So we will begin with The Pirate and the Dinosaur, Jimmy's Big Adventure. So chapter 1. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Jimmy who loved the vastness of the ocean. The idea of diving deep into the beautiful blue water, where all the sea monsters were known to live at the bottom, kept him up every night. In fact, it would keep him up way after his mom and dad put him into bed. Jimmy would lay down in his warm bed with his covers pulled up right up to his nose, and in the distance in his room, he could see his nightlight making pirate ship shadows on the walls by his window. Jimmy loved the ocean so much that his room was decorated with various sea creatures and pirate ships. As Jimmy drifted off to sleep, he heard a dinosaur roar in the distance. Roar! Jimmy whispered to himself as he rubbed his eyes awake. He managed to wiggle up out of the covers and walked over to the window in his room. I wonder what made that noise, Jimmy thought. He looked out the window, and what did he see? Wow! And double dog dare me, wow! Jimmy could not believe his eyes. He was being careful as to not wake up his mom and dad. Jimmy had to rub his eyes once or twice just to make sure he wasn't dreaming. He couldn't be dreaming. He could not believe what he was seeing. It all looked so real, but if by chance it was a dream, it was one that Jimmy never wanted to wake up from. It was a beautiful, amazing sight, but how could this be? Out of his window, just above the oak tree in his yard, stood a huge black pirate ship with a flag swaying back and forth in the wind. The flag read, "The C-Rex." Jimmy was so excited he felt his tiny heart begin to pound in his chest. Wow, he thought, he always loved anything that had to do with the ocean, especially pirates. Jimmy couldn't wait to see what was on board that pirate ship that drifted back and forth in the water. He thought, but how do I get there? Jimmy scratched his head for a moment and he thought, when all of a sudden a big gust of wind whoosh, came through his window and blew right through, picking him up in the gust and bringing him out to the pirate ship. Whoa, this was so much fun, Jimmy shouted. Jimmy was scared, but also excited. He wondered what the pirates looked like that lived on the C-Rex. In fact, he wondered if they were nice or if they were mean. And then he thought, how am I ever going to get back home? Off in the distance, Jimmy heard the knocking of footsteps. The footsteps began to come closer and closer to where he was. One knock sounded so much louder than the others. Jimmy lifted himself up off the floor of the C-Rex and stood to his feet. He could see a shadowy figure walking towards him. The wind began to pick up again and the smoky fog cleared. As it did, Jimmy started to see the outline of a pirate. He had a big pirate's hat and long flowing curly hair. And that loud knocking noise, that was his wooden peg leg. Jimmy raised his eyes and focused in on the pirate. "Pirate Crab Cakes is my name," he said to Jimmy. "Ahoy, matey, and welcome aboard the C-Rex. My crew and I have been waiting to meet you. We've heard that you love the sea as much as we do. And we are in search of a dinosaur." Captain Crab Cakes took Jimmy's hand and they started to walk along the deck. "What do you say we go on a little adventure, you and me? You would, of course, have to agree to the pirate code and vow to become part of our pirate clan. Can you do that, Jimmy?" Jimmy thought for a second, his little tiny shoulders shaking, put his hand on his chin and said, "Sure, count me in. I've always wanted to be a pirate." Pirate Crab Cake smiled widely, showing off all 4 of his wooden teeth. "Ahoy, my fearless and faithful crewmates. Jimmy has agreed to the bargaining of becoming a pirate just like us, but there is one exception. Jimmy will only be allowed to be a pirate for the length of our adventure. We will set sail to the great blue sea in search of the mystical mermaid so that she can grant his wish." Captain Crab Cakes looked up towards the sky and with a massive shout he yelled, "Drop the sails and set them north. We're in search of the mystical mermaid." All at once, the sails dropped and a huge gust of wind filled them, pushing them forward. With a big splash, the C-Rex began her voyage into the sea. Chapter 2. Jimmy rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The beauty of the ocean was beyond what words could describe. He saw some of the biggest dolphins jumping across the waves. He saw massive seagulls swarming around, and they dove into the water, snatching up yummy fishy snacks. He saw the most beautiful sunset across the horizon and thought, wow, Mom and Dad surely would love this view. Jimmy's mom loved sunsets. She loved to paint. In fact, she painted quite a few that lined the hallway in their house. It was at that moment that Jimmy wished he had brought his camera that he always hung on his bedpost. He kept it there in case he needed to show Mom that there was proof that ghosts and monsters existed and made it into his room at night. After all, everyone knows that a camera flash will chase ghosts and monsters away, right? and Jimmy wasn't going to take any chances. As quickly as that thought came and went, Jimmy noticed the Sea Rex began to slow its pace down. Captain Crabcakes popped his head up from the cabin underneath the deck and gave another one of his big grin smiles. "I believe we've arrived," he said, stepping out onto the deck with his peg leg thumping. Captain Crabcakes walked up to where Jimmy was standing when he reached into his pocket and pulled out a pair of skull and bone goggles. Jimmy was so excited, yet he wondered if they were for him. He was hoping that they were. Captain Crabcakes knelt down beside Jimmy and handed the goggles to him. "Here you go, Jimmy. These special goggles will come in handy when looking for the things of the sea you seek." Jimmy's eyes grew as wide as the sea. He was so happy that those were his. He smiled right back at Captain Crabcakes and gave him a little wink. All of a sudden, the Sea Rex began to rock, and the water beneath it began to swirl. Faster and faster it turned. The ocean spray was almost enough to blind Jimmy from seeing what was in front of him. But wait a minute, Jimmy thought. I have these special goggles that Captain Crabcakes gave to me. I wonder if they'll help me. Jimmy quickly put the magic goggles on, and what he saw next was amazing. Coming up out of the sea, in the middle of the sea mist, was a beautiful mermaid. She had long flowing red hair that went on for what seemed like miles. Her eyes were as green as emeralds, and her tail was a glittery gold color that swayed around in a circle, creating the waves in the sea mist that they were experiencing. All Jimmy could say was "wow," with his mouth open wide. She was so beautiful and majestic, but you could tell that all the fish in the sea obeyed her commands. She was like their queen. The beautiful mermaid inched closer to the Sea Rex, where she could set her gaze upon Jimmy with his magic goggles. She gave a little chuckle and then threw Jimmy a kiss. "You must be Jimmy from the dry land. I have heard much talk among the sea about you and the creature that you seek. My name is Luna. I am the mermaid of the moon and of all the seas. Why do you seek this creature of the sea, Jimmy?" Jimmy took a deep breath and thought for a minute before speaking. When he was ready, he let out his deep breath and said, "I'm on a quest to discover the long-lost dinosaur from my dreams. I know that he is somewhere at the bottom of the sea. I think he may have gotten lost from where he was originally supposed to be. I want to find him and ask him what happened. My mom and dad told me the story of the one who finds the dinosaur in the sea. They will get a wish granted, and oh, how happy they will be. Stories told for years to come to make the whole world see that dinosaurs and pirates can live amongst the sea. And truth be told, they are our friends just like you and me." The mermaid waved her hand up high, and the waves could almost touch the sky, and in came forth a rod of gold for Jimmy, for strength and stories untold. "This magic rod will help you in your journey to the sea, but be sure to keep it close to your side, Jimmy. You wouldn't want to lose it or let it fall into the wrong hands. What you hold in your hand right now is very powerful and is meant to be used only for good. The dinosaur that you seek, Jimmy, has been lost at the bottom of the sea for many years. There was once a great earthquake that separated the land that he and his family lived on. The earthquake caused a great division and a valley so deep that the baby dinosaur could not get across it to his family. Try as he might, he was unable to reach the other side, and year after year the great crack in the earth began to fill with water, until soon it became covered and part of the ocean that you see before you now." Jimmy could not believe his ears. He began to feel sad knowing that the dinosaur had been separated from his family for so long. Jimmy was determined now more than ever about finding the dinosaur at the bottom of the sea and helping him find his way back to land so he could be with his family. He had his magic goggles and his magic rod, and he was so excited about beginning his grand adventure. Jimmy stopped for a moment and began to scratch his head. He said, looking at Captain Crabcakes. I only have one problem. If I'm to find the dinosaur at the bottom of the sea, I'm going to need a way to be able to breathe underwater. Do you have any ideas about that, Captain Crab Cakes? Captain Crab Cakes gave Jimmy a wink and a smile as he looked over to his first mate, Shell Shock. "Aye, matey Shell Shock, go into my secret treasure box and pull out the golden locket at the bottom of the box. Bring it to me so that I may help this wee lad solve his final problem." Shell Shock hobbled down to the captain's quarters and grabbed the golden locket out of his secret treasure box. Shell Shock hurried as fast as he could with the locket in hand, admiring the golden shine that glistened into his one good eye. "Here it is, Captain Crab Cakes. Here is the golden locket." Shell Shock handed the locket to the captain and slowly backed away, still keeping his good eye focused on the beautiful trinket. Jimmy caught a glimpse of the shiny locket as it swung back and forth in Captain Crab Cake's hand. Closer and closer the captain came to Jimmy. It was like Jimmy was hypnotized watching the locket. He wondered to himself, if the locket was that beautiful on the outside, what kind of beauty would it behold on the inside once it was opened? And that was chapter 2. So I've got quite a few more chapters to go. But those were the first 2 chapters of the book, and I hope that it's kind of got you guys wondering what kind of good stuff Jimmy's going to get into, because he does get into a huge adventure. He runs into an evil octopus, and he runs into a bunch of creatures that try to stop him from helping the dinosaur get home to the rest of his family. In fact, I'll let you in on a little secret. Everybody in the world thinks that this is a sea monster at the bottom of the sea, when in reality, he's just a dinosaur trying to get back home. So, Miss McClure's class, I hope that that has got your imaginations going and you're really wanting to know how the book ends. So maybe if you guys continue to do as well as you're doing now, I can do 2 more chapters for you, and we can do that continually while we're doing our online studies at home, and you guys can finally find out what happens if Jimmy is successful on his adventure or not. In the meantime, remember to continue doing your good work, keep pressing forward, keep learning, keep thriving, wash your hands, and remember, we love you. See you later.